So finally we see the return of the bezel-less design thanks to Xiaomi. So this is the Mi Mix, and it has a slim 2.4mm bezel, 6.4-inch screen, but thanks to those small bezels, it's only about the size of a Samsung Galaxy Note 7, about the same height, just a little wider. So spec-wise, it has a Snapdragon 821 processor, up to 6GB of RAM and up to 256GB of internal storage. Also has a large 4400 mAh battery, a 6.4-inch 1080p screen, and an all-ceramic body. Now looking at the design of the Mi Mix, on the back we have a 16-megapixel camera with an aperture of 2.0, dual LED flash, and a ceramic-covered fingerprint reader. And along the top, a 3.5mm headphone jack and 2 microphones. On the right-hand side, ceramic volume buttons and power button. The left-hand side, a SIM tray that supports dual nano SIMs. No micro SD card support here, unfortunately. On the bottom, a Type-C port that supports Qualcomm Quick Charge 3 for very fast charging. It can charge in 30 minutes up to around about 65% battery, which is quite impressive. Loudspeaker and microphone. And lastly, on the front of the Mi Mix, we have a front-facing 5-megapixel camera with an aperture of 2.0, located awkwardly down the bottom because I don't have space for it on the front, of course, having screen there. Now the earpiece is internal. It transmits the sound through the frame, through the screen, and I found that it does sound a little bit flat and muffled. Not the best earpiece call quality. The ambient light sensor and status LED are also located just down here, and I'll show you those in detail later on in the video. So here in the shade I can make out the screen perfectly. It is nice and bright, and also in direct sunlight as well, but I'm struggling to capture this on my camera, but in person it is perfectly visible, very good in sunlight. Now indoors here, you'll see that the screen looks really good. Now one thing I wanted to point out too is the rounded corners of the display, something you don't often see. Normally they're just squared off. It does look nice. Viewing angles are really good. It's an IPS panel. And as you saw there, that outdoors the brightness is sufficient. I haven't really any complaints with this screen. And you can see here that when you play a 16:9 movie or clip that you recorded on it, you're going to get these borders along the side, but you can swipe them away and then you get borders either side, which doesn't look as bad because then they come in as black. But if I bring that back, you'll see you just get that border along there on the right hand side, or depending of course on what angle you're looking at the screen with the auto rotation. So the screen almost has no bezel, but there is still one there. It is 2.4mm, and it's more obvious when you go into something with a white background. Here you can see clearly now the bezel, and Xiaomi was very clever to use these darker looking backgrounds to try and hide the fact that it has any bezel at all. Now if you're wondering where the status LED is located, it's just above the USB Type-C port. And you can configure your own colors for different notifications like missed calls, messages, and other alerts. So the Mix has a rear fingerprint reader on it, and I find that it works really well. Simply just place your finger on it and it unlocks straight away. There's no need to wake up the Mix first. And it's working for me 10 out of 10 times. So the build of it is top notch. This thing just screams premium. The fit finish, perfect. The way the edges meet up, I cannot fault this design. It is absolutely a beauty to behold and just looks stunning. One thing, however, it's a complete fingerprint magnet. It attracts fingerprints like no other because of the ceramic design. I also imagine that if you drop this thing, it would break in an instant, having hardly any bezel. It's also very, very slippery when your hands are cold. So the UI is MIUI 8.0.8 is the version that shipped out. And now that is Xiaomi's own skin that is based on Android 6.0.1. Now in general, I found that the performance of it is quick and snappy when multitasking and swapping between applications. However, now and then I have noticed that sometimes there is a little bit of stutter, especially when exiting out of games. And I think it's related to the on-screen buttons there, so there could be a few firmware updates that are needed in order to fix that. Now, one thing also to point out is that it doesn't ship with Google Play Store, but it's not too hard to install. All you need to do is move over some APK files, install those, and then you have Google Play Store, which functions just fine. I haven't had any problems with that. And on first boot, you get a lot of Chinese bloat. And just to point out also that at the time of this review, there is no global ROM, so it only comes in Chinese and English. Alright, so battery life, I'm finding to be really quite good here on the Mi Mix. So it does have a 4400 mAh battery, which is rather large, not as large as the Mi Max. So screen on time, 7 hours, 17 minutes. I still have 20% battery life left. Just quickly show you the history here. So 8 hours and 8 minutes that it's been on with some, well, the wireless on the whole time and some quite, I would say, heavy use, because I'll just show you the applications I've been running. So I've done some gaming here. And it's 1 hour 30 minutes, Modern Combat 5, 1 hour 20 minutes, Chrome for 40 minutes, YouTube 30 minutes, and Clash of Clans and other things there. So quite heavy use. With my standard kind of use that I would normally have, I would be able to make at least 2.5 days on this. I do find the battery is really quite good. So with an ample 4 to 6 gigabytes of RAM, a Snapdragon 821 and UFS 2.0 storage, performance is really good. Here's some synthetic benchmarks here. So this is Geekbench 4. And the internal storage speeds, 407 megabytes per second reads, and 172 writes is really quite quick. Now notice that the wireless performance, reception, very good. And also very decent speeds out of my router. That was on the same level. And then downstairs, of course, the signal does drop down a little, but it still managed to get very decent speeds, almost exactly the same. And 4G speeds as well when I was out down in town. Again, very good. And the GPS works without fault, gets locked really quick, and retains that when I was driving around town without any problems. And finally, the Antutu 6.2.1 score. A very decent score there of 152,000. Audio quality, I find that the 3.5mm headphone jack outputs very nice clean audio. There's no static on it. It does lack a little bit of volume. I would like it personally to be a tiny bit louder so you can drive a very large headset. And we have a loudspeaker down here on the bottom, microphone here, and the earpiece is missing, of course, because the screen is there. So what happens with the earpiece is it actually transmits the sound internally through the screen, through the ceramic housing. So calls, listening to them, it doesn't sound as good, the person on the other end, as it would in another mobile with a normal traditional earpiece, which is an actual speaker there. So it has what I would call like a flat sound to it and almost like a bit of vibration. It is loud, you can up the volume, but not as loud as other earpieces on other phones. So let's have a listen to how this speaker sounds. So hopefully you could hear from that quick little demonstration that the speaker sounds to me loud enough. The quality isn't too bad. I'd rate that as a decent speaker. It's not as good as front-facing stereo setups, however. So included in the box is a case. Now this is made out of leather. The inside of it has a suede-like material and it covers up the mix completely apart from the bottom is exposed. And here we have cutouts for the 3.5mm headphone jack and microphones and protection for the camera. I really do recommend using this since the Mix is such a slippery mobile phone. Now what about gaming on it? Well, due to the bezel-less display, bright screen and very vibrant colors it has, games just pop out and they are super immersive. I really do like gaming on this device. However, it's not flawless. I have noticed that there's a few tiny little millisecond stutters here and there, and you'll see more of that in my gaming review. There should be a little eye popping up now in the top right hand corner if you're interested in seeing more on gaming on the Mi Mix. Now to look at the camera UI we have here, this is the stock MIUI 8 camera app. I'm in video mode at the moment, so we can shoot slow-mo and time-lapse and up to 4K video. Now in the camera mode, you see we don't have as much of a crop. And the viewfinder has a little bit of lag there, you can see. That's not because I'm recording, that's actually happening without capturing the screen. Now I'm in manual mode at the moment. We have focus control, white balance, exposure time, and ISO. The other modes are your standard there. And we also have some filters. So the shutter rate in good lighting conditions is pretty much instantaneous. In low light, it's a little slower there. So let's have a look at some video sample shot on both the front and rear cameras, as well as photos in good and low light conditions. So the front facing sensor is 5 megapixels with an aperture of 2.0. And the location of it's a little awkward. It's right on the chin and right up against the edge of the mobile, so you have to be very careful in landscape right now shooting video not to cover it like I just did then. Now the quality isn't too bad. It does shoot up to 1080p video, but in low light conditions, so poorly lit environments, the frame rate does drop below 30 frames per second and become quite choppy. Now this is something I've experienced on literally most Xiaomi mobiles, and I really think it's time they addressed it. So on the rear camera you can shoot up to 4K, which is what this sample here is. And you've got the same 2.0 aperture on the rear. Now the focus does have problems now and then. You'll see that it does actually go in and out often, struggling to get locked sometimes. But you can enable tap to focus mode, which is probably advisable since it does struggle here. So then you control the focus yourself. It records okay quality video, but there is no optical image stabilization or digital stabilization, so images are going to be shaky, and it's not really flagship grade video. Also, the audio is only 96 kilobits per second, which is a little low. So that's my review there. Just to wrap up my findings here, the pros, well, it's got a really nice design, a fresh design, a really immersive display that just makes web browsing and media consumption really, really nice. And it's slippery, yes. Also, my biggest complaint is the camera just isn't flagship grade camera on this that they put on there. Yet again, Xiaomi have passed on the camera. They just have not even really focused too much on it, which is a real shame because it lets down the whole device. There's also some issues like the call quality sounds quite flat on there due to that internal speaker. Now they couldn't really overcome that, so I guess I can excuse that. There's also some stutters in the UI. I think it's to do with the on-screen buttons and they need some more optimization. And gaming performance, while super immersive and really nice on the screen, I did notice a few more stutters than usual on the Snapdragon 821 here. So, thank you for watching, and if you did like this review, why not think about subscribing for more up-and-coming reviews just like this one.